I'm now going to introduce the first speaker. Dr. Banojyotnsna Lahiri is a Delhi-based independent researcher, writer and activist. She has a PhD in sociology from Jawaharlal Nehru University and has taught sociology in Delhi University, Jamia Millia Islamia and Ambedkar University. She is currently a research consultant with the SPECT Foundation and also the partner of activist and scholar Umar Khalid. Umar Khalid was active in the protest against the December 2019 Citizenship Amendment Act, which blatantly discriminates against Muslims. This law was opposed across India by a wide cross-section of people. In an atmosphere of intense fear, intimidation, harassment and repression, Umar raised his voice against religious discrimination and human rights violations. Arrested on the 30th September 2020, he was charged under the draconian anti-terror legislation, the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Umar has remained in prison for 3 years without trial. His bail applications have been repeatedly rejected by the courts. And I'll now pass you on to Banojyotnsna.
Thanks a lot for having me. It's always nice to talk to people about and exchange ideas, because all of us right now at every part of the world right now are caught in some kind of oppression, miseries, and we are fighting back. So it's always good to exchange ideas, and I guess this is also the idea of this kind of teaching. I just might mention I've got a very bad cold, so at times I might just take a cough break, so please don't mind that. Yeah, so my name is Banojyotnsna. I'm based in Delhi. India right now, as you know, is most of you would know that it's reeling under one of the most authoritative, almost fascist government, and this government is subverting democracy in all ways possible. All the democratic institutions in India are currently under severe attack, be it the media, the independent media, the courts, the various executive bodies, legislative bodies, everything is under severe attack. But along with that, how Indian democracy is under attack is the essence of democracy is being sucked out, and with a very, very strong religious persecution of the minorities, especially the Muslims that are taking place in India. Also the Christians and other minorities, but the foremost target right now are the Muslims. Now, one of the major attack on the essence of Indian democracy, the spirit of Indian democracy, took place in 2019. 2019 is the year when the Modi government came back for a second term. And as soon as it came back, it did a lot of things. It took the special status away from the state of Jammu and Kashmir. It abrogated the Article 370, which was part of the constitution for Jammu and Kashmir. And it was pretty clear that there will be further attack on the constitution of India. So what we are fighting for in India right now is basic democracy, constitutional democracy. It's not like we are fighting for, social equality or economic equality and stuff like that. We are now fighting for basic constitutional liberty. In 2019, the second blow that came, major blow that came to Indian democracy, was the Citizenship Amendment Act, the CAA. The Citizenship Amendment Act was an act brought in by the government and passed because they had majority. It said that it's going to give citizenship to persecuted minorities of the three Muslim majority from the three Muslim majority neighbors of India, that is in Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan. Now, on the face of it, at the beginning, it said that, okay, fine. I mean, it's giving citizenship to persecuted minorities. What's wrong with that? From neighboring countries. But it was deeply devious and a vicious law. And I'll just explain to you in a minute, probably. the thing is, India already has very strong citizenship laws, and especially laws to give citizenship to people coming from anywhere in the world, irrespective of uh, religion, region, gender. This was this CAA said that it's going to give citizenship to persecuted minorities that are Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Parsis, and Christians. That's it. So the glaring absence here are the Muslims. It was not going to give, not recognize Muslims as the persecuted minority, and only going to give citizenship to these people coming from these communities. Now, the dangers were at three levels. One, uh, why Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan? These are not the only countries that India shares its borders with. India, in fact, does not share its borders with Afghanistan. It rather shares its borders with land and seas from other countries like Nepal, Bhutan, and along with that, three other countries, which are Myanmar, Sri Lanka, and China. So these are three countries which do not have a very glorious history of, giving rights to minorities, and communities are persecuted, we all know. So why not include these three countries with which you directly share your borders? Why leave them out and, cherry pick three Muslim majority countries and say that we are going to give persecuted minorities citizenship? Are even in these three countries, say Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh, aren't Muslims also persecuted? Aren't Muslims persecuted as minorities? The Shias, the Ahmadis, the Sufis, they are persecuted in these three countries. But it was pretty clear. It was to make the Muslim majority countries as the source of problem, and the Muslims. It was singling out the Muslims. And the third and the most important thing is, this is the first time in India religion was made a condition to give citizenship. We have never, we have always kept giving citizenship unconditional. Whoever we are giving citizenship, it was kept unconditional. This was the first time a clause of religion was introduced in determining citizenship. And we knew that this is the end of democracy. A country where citizenship is conditional, that country is not a democracy. That's the very basic. Now, the problem became even more complex, because in that same year, India has also done in one of its state, Assam, the national NRC, the National Register of Citizens, that citizens of the entire state of Assam, one of the most populous states of India, were asked to provide documents to prove their citizenship. I mean, it's also more complicated. I'm not going into the complexities, but just to say that they, from 2017 to 2019, in 2 years, the entire state of Assam was asked to provide documents to prove their citizenship. Now, what are these documents? These documents are not the Aadhaar card, which is the unique ID that every citizen has. Those were, the Aadhaar cards were given to every citizen, but they were said that no, these are not if you have an Aadhaar card, it doesn't mean anything, because Assam is a border state, and there are a lot of, the idea was that it is to weed out illegal immigrants which have been coming from Bangladesh and Burma to Assam. And therefore, you have to show that you have been a citizen of India from since 1970. And what all were asked to produce? You have to produce, bank passbooks, you have to produce life insurance policies, electricity bills, land documents, educational documents. Now, does it ring a bell? I mean, who can afford all these things, these kind of documents? India, one of the most populous countries in the world, is also one of the poorest countries, right? There are a huge amount of population who do not have land documents, who do not have electricity in their houses, who have never been to school, who do not have bank accounts, who do not have life insurance policies, who do not have driving license. So ultimately, from 2017 to 2019, this cumbersome exercise of people lining up, giving documents. Tentatively, people were declared stateless and they were put in detention centers. Ultimately, in 2019, 4 crore people were declared stateless. After that, their documents were not enough. 4 crore, that is 40 million. How many European countries can add up to that kind of population who were just declared stateless in India? Now, the government became slightly went on a back foot because they realized that out of these 4 crores, the majority are not Muslims that they were wondering or fantasizing it should be. The majority were actually Hindus. But they said that now we'll have NRC all across India. And our Home Minister came in and very eloquently said that you understand the chronology. First, we'll do NRC, then we'll implement CA, meaning that we will implement NRC all across the country. Then the people who will be declared stateless, the Muslims will not be given citizenship. The others will be given citizenship by CA. It was, and even that was an impossible task to do. It was bizarre. But he said, and the whole country said, yeah, whatever. I mean, we are not going to accept that. There was a huge, huge movement. Anti-CA protest was the biggest civil disobedience movement all across the country that started. It started, I mean, I can be very proud that it started in my neighborhood, in the Jamia Millia students were the first students who came out most vocally, joined by students from other universities. But there were brutal lathicharge, brutal battening on those students. The police on one protest on 15th December 2019, the police entered the campus, fired stun grenades inside the campus, beaten up students who were sitting in the library and studying, beaten them in pulp. Against that police brutality and against that, against the CAA, the women in one pretty quiet neighborhood, once again in my own neighborhood, called in place called Shaheen Bagh, the women just came out and sat on the streets. They blocked one road and they said that we are not going to get back till the Jamia students get justice, until ECA is rolled back. Now, why women? Because we have seen in NRC also, when you are asked to produce this kind of bizarre documents to prove your existence, the minorities are the ones who are targeted, and within minorities, the women are the ones in a country like India with least documents, least documents, then their names change after marriage. So, so identity-wise, women and transgenders are the most vulnerable people when it comes to producing documents to show your identity. So there was a huge movement from Shaheen Bagh across the country, and it was led by Muslim women, but it was not a Muslim protest as such. People from all communities joined in. And it was one of the, I mean, when I remember the times during Shaheen Bagh protest and all the other Shaheen Baghs that came up across the country, it was the most, most democratic, the most colorful, peaceful, and enriching protests that I have ever witnessed in my life. And a lot of people said so. Like there were teachings like this, like there were teachings. University professors will come and there will be open air classes. Libraries started popping up in these protest sites. People would sit and read. People would talk about democracy, about constitutions. The preamble of the constitution was read every day in almost all the protests, reiterating that this is the spirit that India stands for. This is what we stand for. So then what happened was, while these protests were going on, in February, the Delhi riots broke. The Delhi riots broke in the northeast part of Delhi, where a lot of CAA protests were going on. And it was an absolute targeting of these protests and the Muslims in general, the Muslims who had so eloquently asserted themselves. It was an attack on them, on their lives, on their livelihoods. 52 people were killed in the riots. 35 of them were Muslims. Okay. But when the riots were over, like 7 mosques were completely gutted in the area. No Hindu temples were attacked. Yes, Hindus also lost their lives. I'm not saying that Hindus didn't die. Hindus also lost their lives, but it was majority an attack on the Muslim lives and livelihoods. When the riots were over, the Delhi police said that the riots were a part of conspiracy. And what was the conspiracy? The anti-CA movement was the conspiracy. So the anti-CA movement led into the protest, led into the riots. And had the protest not been there, the riots would not have been there. So a protest was going on. People from outside came, attacked the entire area of the riots, burnt houses, killed people. But you say it's like victim blaming classic that no, why did you sit for the protest? That provoked people to come from outside. And people who came from outside were never uh, investigated properly. There were 700 FIRs which were filed on the riots. Several people were arrested from both communities, but one FIR was turned into the conspiracy FIR of the riots. Okay, that one FIR, FIR 59, implicated 18 anti-CAA activists. Many of them were not even present in when the riots were taking place. Many of them were not even in Delhi when the riots took place. One of them was in jail when the riots took place. But 18 people were arrested. They were implicated. The case that started with bailable offenses was ultimately turned 4 sections of UAPA, the Unlawful Activity Prevention Act, which is the most draconian anti-terror law, was included, and it turned into a terror case. So 18 activists, anti-CAA activists who had led the protest, who had participated in the protest, were now called terrorists. The entire anti-CAA movement was turned into a terror act, and it's been 4 years. 3 people got bail. The High Court, the Delhi High Court, actually gave a good judgment saying that, you know, protest and terrorism is not the same thing. These people were protesting. They were not terrorist act. But a year later, the same Delhi High Court, even with the same judge, at least one judge was the same, started saying completely different language. And then they started denying bail to people. So these people are not out on even on bail. The trial has not yet started. It's been 4 years that the case was registered. The trial has not yet started. And in the meantime, they are not going to give bail because they're implicated in terror case. And in terror case, you don't give bail. So it's a loop. It's a loop in which 18 to 20 anti-CAA protesters are now caught up. And in a nutshell, you can understand like how it, I mean, I hope I have been able to explain it to you. Like they started to completely liquidate democracy and the spirit of democracy and the spirit of constitution. People protested, and then instead of addressing the cause of the protest, the riots took place, and then the protesters were turned into terrorists. So Umar Khalid is one of those 18 people who are in jail. Sharjil Imam, Gulfisha, Khalid Saifi, all these people who are in jail are anti-CA activists. They were students, scholars, businessmen, local shopkeepers, people who, many of them were first-time protesters who came out, you know, for the first time because they were so moved with their existence being questioned, with the democracy being completely subverted. That's why they came out, and now they're in prison without bail, without a trial.